Hi, and welcome to this video on the new platform support in Kentico 10 for responsive images. We'll start by learning a little about the theory and practical implementation of responsive images, and then deep dive into how they work in Kentico 10. I'm Michael Kincaid. You can find me on Twitter at @meandmyrobot. I'm a Kentico MVP and the CTO at Eccentric Arts Inc., which is a digital agency in Toronto, Canada, or as the locals say, Toronto. Apologies to my wife for that horrible impression. The internet. It loves a good image. When was the last time you were on a web page and it had no images? When was the last time you were on a web page and it only had one image for that matter? It feels like this is a more appropriate expression of the internet's love for images. And with all those pretty images, web pages are getting chunky. Time for some stats. If we check out the average bytes per page by content type over here at httparchive.org, you'll see that in December 2016, the total page size was roughly equal to an entire download of the classic 3D shooter Doom. Oh, to be a teenager again. The hours I spent playing that game. And images, well, images account for roughly 65% of the total size of a downloaded web page today. And the 2 megs we are seeing here isn't that bad. Many popular pages have you downloading well over 5 megabytes. That's especially fun on a mobile device using a cellular data network. So, how are images contributing to bloated pages? The volume of images on a page is certainly one issue, but neither your art department or your site visitors are going to thank you if your site is dull and boring, so we should likely look elsewhere to optimize. Problem number 1, and you could argue the entire reason for the responsive solution we'll discuss, is the wonderful world of devices that we live in. Let's look a little closer at our image. It's 2 megs. A fair amount of that data is added junk, such as metadata, color profile information, etc. This image is also dimensionally rather large. Maybe it's a huge background banner image for a homepage. We add the image to our HTML with the single source attribute that the image tag gives us. Next, to get the image to scale down appropriately based on the device's screen width, we set its max width to 100% of its container. And from here, we send the image down the wire to our different devices. Hope you're using Wi-Fi on those mobile devices, otherwise browsing around is soon going to eat up your data and cost you money. Responsive images are one technique you can use to start addressing these problems. So responsive images are all about delivering the right image to the client based on the properties of that client. And by right image, we mean one that is optimized, so hopefully appropriately compressed and dimensionally sized. We should also send an image type that is supported. There's no point in sending a WebP image if you're on Internet Explorer 8, in which case we'll send our condolences. Some responsive image techniques also let you apply art direction, so sending completely different images depending on the use case. If you're going to encounter this anywhere, then you've probably seen it on mobile devices, where on desktop it's a large wide image, but on mobile they've actually cropped the subject matter of the image a little bit tighter. So the first thing we're going to want to do is optimize the file size of the image. This can be done using compression. When it comes to compression, there are 2 types: lossy and lossless. Lossy is any compression technique that reduces the size of the actual image data. This will definitely lower your file size, but you might notice a reduction in image quality if the compression is too high. Lossless is any compression that keeps the image data but gets rid of any of the cruft that just adds bytes. So in this case, things that we don't necessarily need to send down to the device, like the metadata. Using one or both of these techniques gives us a nice image to start with. A lot of image editing tools have compression filters built in that you can play with. There's also an increasing number of tools and services online that you can point your production people or client content editors to. Let's check out some randoms, which, to be clear, I have no affiliations with. Here's compressor.io. You can upload your image to this tool and you'll see that it does a before and after compression here. We can have a look. This one does lossless and lossy as well. so not bad. Another one is tiny PNG. So let's check this out. We'll upload an image. This is rather a large file. Upload it in 640 kilobytes, and let's see what we get. We get a saving of 84%, so that's pretty decent. This tool can also be installed locally as a Photoshop plugin that you can use whenever you're producing your images. And then finally, Kraken.io. This is another great cloud service, really good API as well. Has a similar before and after demo here. This looks pretty good, 63% reduction. Check out the web interface. Like the other ones, you'll see we've got lossy, we've got lossless, many more features if you pay for it. Let's try a lossless. So let's grab another large image. We'll upload this. You can see here it's uploading, and then it'll do its magic, cracking, and we get 7.9% saving, which isn't huge, but then again, we did have it on lossless. So if we go to lossy, so now we're okay with it doing heavier compression, and upload the same image, we'll see what we get. So uploading and cracking, and much better savings, so 67% savings. So there are many options available for you when it comes to compressing your images. Services like Kraken.io will provide you with all sorts of different algorithms and lossy, lossless compression. They will also host your images as well. It's another service that they provide too. So we have a nice image to start with. Even compressed, we likely still don't want to send the same image to every device. The responsive image technique is built around sending device-specific images, or just like having a fluid grid for your web page, creating a spectrum of images for a wide range of breakpoints. The number of breakpoints to support, the file size targets, the size steps between images can all be decided upon in your performance budget. Irrespective, creating these different sized images is going to result in optimized file sizes as well that we can send through to each of our different devices. And as for art direction, if we are sending device-specific image variants, we can edit images specifically for the attributes of that device. So we might send a completely different image down into a mobile smaller screen. So that's all great, but how on earth do we send different images to different devices? Especially considering the image tag has but one source attribute? Well, the answer to that question is that you now have several approaches, all shown here, that you can use to target devices with specific images, or more appropriately, target device screen widths or resolutions with specific images. In one shape or another, the responsive image approach has been around for several years now. As you can imagine, one of the first approaches was to use JavaScript. That's been superseded, but let's have a quick peek at how you would accomplish this approach with JavaScript. In this HTML file, I have an image, and that image has a class of responsivizer where I've set a max width of 100% on the image, just so it scales. You'll see that I'm using data attributes in the image to set different SRC values. So I have a large, medium, small, and wee image, and we're going to use JavaScript to assign a URL to the SRC based on the screen width. If we have a look at our JavaScript file, you'll see here we've got a demo object where we are listening to the resize event of the window, and we're calling parse current width. Within there, what we're doing is we're just checking to see which condition applies, whether or not the current width is large, medium, small, or wee, and we're working that out based on the actual pixel width of the screen. So you'll see here we're saying things like, is the current width greater than or equal to 1200 pixels? Then finally, what we're doing is we're calling the switch image method, where we are then going to say, based on our calculation of the current width, get the appropriate data attribute value, and then put that into the SRC and load the new image. So let's quickly have a look here at this being run. You'll see the SRC value of the image. We start to scale down the width of the browser. You'll see that the SRC is changing to the value within the data attribute that currently applies. Thankfully, we no longer need to rely on JavaScript. The next three approaches are native browser features that facilitate responsive images. The first one we'll look at is the SourceSet attribute. Here we have an image tag with the SourceSet attribute. This attribute allows us to specify multiple image URLs. It's the browser which decides which image to load. But how does it do this? Well, this is where hints come in. We can add a display descriptor just after each image URL that informs the browser about the width of that particular image. Alternatively, we can add display density descriptors to provide context about images formatted for Retina displays. The browser, knowing its width and its DPI, can then request the appropriate image. We can also use the size attribute to give the browser additional context on how this image will behave across screen widths using media conditions, which are very much like media queries. In our example, our two conditions state, if the browser window is wider than 800 pixels, this image is probably going to be displayed about 60% the size of that. If it's smaller, it'll probably be full width. Remember that with SourceSet, the browser determines what image it will load. It does this by reading your descriptors, SourceSet, and size attribute values, and then uses its own logic that's improving all the time and will likely get increasingly fancy in the future, to pick the correct image. Here we have an image with the sizes and SourceSet attributes. For sizes, I'm just saying that this image is going to be 100% of the view width. And then my SourceSet attribute has many images, all of increasing sizes, and I've also specified the width of those as well. So if we go to a browser and resize, we'll start off small and we'll just scale it up, and you'll see that the different images are being loaded as the browser width gets wider and wider. Now, I started from the bottom up just so I could show you how the browser logic actually dictates what image gets loaded. If we start from as wide as possible and go narrow in another tab, what you'll notice is that the browser, having loaded the high-res image, will keep that there as the browser window gets scaled down. It doesn't need to call or load any other images. It's already got the best one in there. So again, this is where you can see how the browser can actually dictate what image is being displayed, even though we provided hints. A great tool for generating the various image variants based on a performance budget is responsivebreakpoints.com. So you can have a look here and see that we can do things like, with regards to our settings, specify resolution, the size step, the maximum number of images that we want to actually create. So we can play around with this, bring it down a bit. We only want 8. We can upload a file. So I'll go and grab that large file again from my coffee cup. Add this, and then what it's going to do is it's going to create the different variants based on that performance budget. So here we'll see we have our different images that it's generated. You can see the width, the height, and the file size, again, based on the performance budget. And then further on down, we also have the image tag generated based on the number of variants. If the browser has some say in what image is getting loaded with SourceSet, how do you maintain control? Say, for example, when you want to use art direction. This is where the picture tag comes in. The picture tag has a lot of similarities to an image tag with SourceSet. The main difference, however, is that you're in the driving seat. The browser has to do exactly what you say. For example, behold the picture tag. As you can see, it can get somewhat wordy. The picture tag encompasses other tags, including the image tag, which we can think of here as our default image to load. We also have a new source tag. Each source tag details image information for the browser, including optional device density descriptors. A source will be selected if its media conditions apply. Let's see the picture tag in action. Here we have the picture tag. It has multiple sources defined and an image tag as well. And our image sources are all of different sizes, and we're using media conditions in our source tags to specify when these images should be loaded by the browser. Let's go to your browser and have a look. So we'll scale the width up. and we're loading different images. And again, difference to the SourceSet example, when we go back down again, it will still load the different images based on our media conditions. So here we really are controlling what image is loaded based on the width of the browser. Finally, we come to client hints. At the time of recording this video, this was the least supported browser feature. This one is really cool, however, and has implications for way more optimizations than just what image you send to the client. This approach brings the server back into the optimization picture. The server tells the browser that it wants some hints about the browser's setup and capabilities. This can be done with a meta tag in your HTML page. You can see that we are interested in the DPR, or device pixel ratio, and the width of the device. If the browser supports client hints, then when it next makes a request, say for an image, it will add the requested information into the request headers. And from that point on, the server can decide how best to meet the specific needs of the browser. Let's have a look at a demo. So here I have my HTML page. You can see I've added in the meta tag for accept client hints, and I'm looking for the DPR and the width. Let's go and request this page and check out what happened in Fiddler. So the server will have sent down the HTML page with our meta tag, and then on subsequent requests, we can see that the browser is sending the information along. So we have a DPR value of 2, and we have a width of 2560. Then the server can use this information and return an appropriately sized image. As you can see, client hints not a very widely supported feature with browsers at the moment. The other two that we looked at, SourceSet and the picture tag as well, are very much supported by most modern browsers. And it's these two approaches that you can use with Kentico version 10. How does all this come together in Kentico? Well, naturally with an image. Actually, this one is getting rather boring to look at, so meet my granddad, Joseph Kincaid. Say hi to the internet, granddad. He loves that Ulster rugby gnome. To begin, a content editor uploads an image into Kentico version 10. Kentico then dynamically creates multiple versions of the image. This is accomplished through code that you write as a developer. The first class that you write is an image definition. You create a definition for each image variant that you want generated. You'll notice that you give each definition a helpful identifier to help distinguish it. Here we have large, medium, and small. Another handy bit of logic that you can add into image definitions are scoping rules for when that particular definition should apply. For example, we might say that creating a small image variant is only required within the blog section of our website. Image definitions set up the rules. The image processing magic, however, is done within image filter classes. Instances of these filter classes are called within the image definition classes. As an example, for our large image, we might just choose to run a filter that optimizes the image, say strips out unnecessary metadata, but gives us an image with the same dimensions. For the medium image, we might first optimize and then resize the image, giving us a slightly smaller image. And finally, for our small image, we optimize, resize, and maybe do some art direction with cropping, though obviously accurately positioning that would be a little tricky to automate. Let's jump into Kentico and look at a few examples. So let's start with a 360 view. We'll go into the Pages module, and in here I've built a couple of demos. Let's start with the picture tag. So we click on our page, go to the Form tab, and in here you'll see that we've got a teaser image. I'm going to upload a file, so let's go find that large coffee cup. And Kentico is going to upload the image, and then as you'll see here, we have this new feature called image variants. So we've got the image that we uploaded, which is the coffee cup, and then we have these three variants of large, medium, and small as well, which Kentico dynamically created. If we go to the front end, and let's just start resizing the browser, you'll see we're loading the large image, then the medium image. We get smaller and smaller, and we load the small image. So exactly how is this done in code? So within our project, we've just added a few classes directly to CMS app. So in old app code, I have a demo folder for my responsive images. And in here, I have my definitions, I've got filters, and I've also got macros as well. If we have a look at the picture definitions, you'll see we've got a file for large, medium, and for small. If we have a look at large, so first of all, you'll notice that what we need to do is implement the base class image variant definition. We're also ensuring that the system loads this class when working with the image variant definition by adding the register image variant definition assembly attribute above the class. You'll see we've set the identifier to large. And here we've overridden and implemented the context scopes property. This lets you set a scope whereby this image variant will actually operate. And you can limit it by site or by type or by path. And you can also set multiple scopes here in this property. Then down here at the bottom, you'll notice that we also have our filters. And here we're setting up the different filter types. So we've got a few in here. There's resize image filter, and there's a custom watermark image filter as well that I'm using to actually put that bit of white text on top of the image. So if we go and have a look at another one, so here we have medium. Again, you'll see the identifier set to medium, and similar to the previous class, we're also using scopes, and we have also got our filters, which are resize and watermark. And then finally with the small image variant, again, identifier set to small, we're limiting to the same scope, and with the filters, we're using resize, watermark, and we're also using a crop image filter as well to get that square image for our smaller device widths like mobile. Let's have a look at some of these filter files as well. So here you'll see the different filter files. Here, resize image filter. We're implementing image filter. We're setting properties like our width and our height. But really, whenever it comes to the actual generation of the filter, we are going to call apply filter. So we're implementing this. So you can see here, we're getting the image data from our image helper, and then we're doing our resize, and then we're returning back this resized image data and resized metadata via the image container. The other file that we have is our watermark image filter as well. So if we have a look at that, again, all we're doing is passing in the text in the constructor, and then in apply filter down here, we are just going to create a font, write the text on the image, and then again return the image data and the metadata via image container. Let's have a look at our front end implementation. So if we go into the design tab, now you could add this markup to a page template, to a custom web part, to an existing web part like I've done here, which is a static HTML web part. And if we have a look at the text on this web part, you'll see that what we've got is our picture tag. We have our multiple sources, and we've also got our image tag as well. The macro here, get file URL by good, is what's returning the actual URL for different variants. And you can see that we've got the 3 different variants here. We're passing in our attachment field, menu item teaser image. We're putting in a name, which is going to render out for the actual image within the URL, which is teaser. And then we've got the variant identifier, small, or medium, or large. These 3 properties are required by get file URL by good for it to actually go and return the variant URL. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the database. Responsive images work with attachments. So within CMS attachment, you'll see that there's 2 new fields. We have the attachment variant definition identifier, and this is for the name like small, medium, or large. And we also have the attachment variant parent ID. And as you can imagine, this points the variant to the actual parent attachment that was uploaded and which the variant was created from. So let's go find our attachment field value. And we know that we have a page type of menu item. So we're just going to go and query to find our picture page. So here we have the good from our attachment field. And we can use this now to go and find our variants. So using that good, we'll go in and we'll run a query, and what we're going to look for is the attachment good, the attachment image width, and the attachment variant definition identifier for the 3 variants that were created dynamically whenever we uploaded that image. So if we run this query, we should get back those 3 values, which we do. So here you'll see our large, our medium, and our small, and Kentico has also saved the width value as well, which is going to be pretty handy later on. How about implementing the SourceSet tag within Kentico CMS? You remember that we looked at a tool, responsivebreakpoints.com, and in here we set a performance budget, we uploaded an image, and the tool generated a lot of different variants. It's quite possible that whenever you're doing something with responsive images that you'll have more than just 3 variants. You might have 6, you could have as many as 10, 15. It really depends on the performance budget that you've come up with for your site. As you can imagine, in Kentico, this is done by creating, first of all, our image variant definitions. So I'm going to have 6 different variants. You can see here I've given them unique identifiers, and we've also gone and specified the width for resizing. So 1400 for V1, and then again, just like in the responsive breakpoints, down to 1230, and so on. Here you'll see some initial markup for SourceSet. We're putting in get file URL by good for each of our different variant sizes. This is going to get a bit tedious to write out. I have to be aware of the fact that I have 6 variants. I also have to know the sizes of those variants to be able to properly set up the SourceSet. What would be better would be if we were to wrap all of this up into a custom macro, which I've done. So here we've got responsive helper, get SRCSET, and again we're passing in the good of the original attachment field. Here I've set up my custom macro. I have my macro namespace. I'm initializing that with my module, and in this class I have my macro method. So here we have get SRCSET. In here we're checking our attachment good, and if it's not empty, we're calling build SRCSET. Within here we're getting our attachment info object using the good and the site name. We're getting the URL of that attachment, and we're also getting the variants that are associated to that attachment. For each one of those variants, we're going to get the URL, and we're also going to get the width from the column that Kentico saved the width value into. This gives us all the information that we need to be able to return back all the different variants without needing to know the number of variants or the widths within our actual front-end markup. As always, you're going to want to follow best practices whenever it comes to caching. Check out docs.kentico.com. Here you can find information on caching within macros. So if we have a look, you'll see here we can cache the results of a macro directly when we call the macro by just wrapping it within cache. And there's some advanced settings as well. You can also cache in your code behind within your custom code. So again, check out caching in custom code. And here you'll see all the different settings that you can put in to put a caching strategy in place for your own custom code. Let's see our SourceSet in action. We'll upload a file. So this time it's going to be our coffee picture. The image will be uploaded, and Kentico will create the variants, the 6 different variants that we had configured in our image variant definition files, and apply the different filters. Let's resize. You'll see we've loaded version 5 here. As we slowly scroll up, version 4, version 3, 2, and then finally 1. As we mentioned earlier, the browser is helping out in terms of determining which image to load. So if we start big and go small, you'll see that it loads version 1, and it keeps version 1 as we narrow the width of the page down, this being the difference between SourceSet and the picture tag as well. And just to check the markup that was rendered, if we fire open DevTools, we can have a look and see at our SourceSet attribute values. So let's just go and select the image. And here you'll see the URLs and the widths of all the different variants that were saved and generated by Kentico when we uploaded the original image. In summary, Kentico will now create image variants on the attachment field of your page types. You've got full control over the variant definitions and the number that you have. You've got full control over the filters. We had resize, crop, watermark, but you could use something like ImageMagick to do more complex filters. My personal preference at the moment, based on browser compatibility and functionality as well as SourceSet, I think it's more applicable. Those times when you need art direction, you can use the picture tag, but SourceSet's probably going to be good for the majority of scenarios. It would be great to have similar functionality for the media library, and you can imagine a similar approach whereby you're scoping to a media library folder, and on the insert of a media library image, you're creating variants dynamically on the fly. That might be a custom module for another day. As for now, thanks for watching, and have fun with your responsive images in Kentico.